Not away yet. Oh, my goodness me, what a goal.
Well, the Stars were out in Week 5 of the Canadian Premier League. Goals from Rodriguez, Warshevsky, Diaz, Altobelli. It was a heck of a week. You're on the CPL Newsroom presented by Volkswagen. We've got a couple stars of ourselves here. Mitchell Tierney, Alex Gange-Ruzic, who has returned to Canada from sunny Miami just to watch a 0-0 in the CPL between the Halifax Wanderers and Forge FC. We're going to get to that game later. But, guys, we have to start this week, as it feels like we're kind of having to start every week, with high-flying Atletico Ottawa. They're in first place, and they're clear in first now. Nobody tied with them on points. They're on 13. This is an incredibly impressive team so far. They come back from a goal down to beat Pacific FC at home 3-1. I think we just have to start with both of you. I mean, Mitch, maybe let's start with you. We've been watching a lot of the Atletico Ottawa team over the years. It has never quite felt like this to watch Atletico Ottawa, has it?
No, it certainly hasn't. And at some point here, I'm going to want to run the numbers here and see. I mean, the record is maybe similar to last year's Atletico Ottawa team in terms of how they started the season, but the way they've gotten there is entirely different, like free-flowing attacking football. Even in this one where it looks like, you know, they're not great through the first 45 minutes. They've gone behind. It looks like maybe they're facing their first real adversity of the season. They come out in the second half, 3 goals, absolutely dominant. Just the 4th time in club history that they've come from behind to win a match in the CPL. Well, 2 of those have been this season already. So this is just a completely different Atletico Ottawa team. They can score for fun. It doesn't really matter the circumstances. And I think they're having a lot of fun right now. Like the way these guys are playing, you know, free attacking, like they've just really seemed to enjoy it. And that hasn't always been the case, I don't think, in past years.
No, it has not. But we are definitely getting to a point now where if Atletico Ottawa are on your television, you have to watch them right now. This is the most exciting team in the Canadian Premier League right now. They've scored 15 goals in 5 games, right? They averaged like a little over 1 a game last year. This team is exciting. They are never out of a game. Again, we'll talk about it in a sec because we have to get to Pacific, but they were out of it in the first half. Pacific were much better than them. And maybe for the first half, since their first half of the season, Ottawa were clearly second best against Pacific. But Diego Mejia, who has just changed so much, and we seem like we talk about him every week on this show, makes a very, very clever change at halftime. He swaps his wingbacks. Gabby Antonoro goes to the right. Kevin Dos Santos goes to the left. And immediately, it makes an impact because Dos Santos is able to cut in onto his stronger right foot and unleash screamers from 40 yards. Antonoro is free on the right to kind of run into space and score a second goal and put that team ahead. And just it instantly changed this game. And Mejia just continues to make really clever choices. He's already proven that he established an identity. He's got players to buy into this style he wants to play. But I think now it's clear that he can make these changes during a game. He can find a way to look at another team, see what Pacific's doing to them, identify a way to counter that. And they did, because Pacific had all those numbers in midfield. All of a sudden, Ottawa start moving more of their numbers into midfield and they can break them down. Alex, maybe a quick word on Ottawa for you as well. Is how much are you enjoying this team and what is impressing you most about them so far this year?
Yeah, I mean, lots of places to go. I mean, the watchability is obviously a big one, but maybe just 2 things on this match specifically. One, just how inevitable they are. I think that's something you realize with good teams is even if they have a bad day, there's just this certain inevitability that they're going to show up. They're going to make it tough. And Pacific had Ottawa on the ropes, and you kind of wonder, like, would Ottawa respond, or would this just be a 2-0 road win for Pacific, which kind of Ottawa was found out. No, Ottawa were like, all right, bet, like let's lock in, let's get this going. The best players started to play like the best players. They pulled some goals out. It was so inevitable, and that's when that's a good team. And then the other one was Mejia. On his point, you talk about what he's done. Watching a lot of games, it's scary. Like he's on the bench just absolutely losing his mind, even though his team are up 2-1 and he's intense. Credit to him because he noticed his team was kind of rocking. Like Manny Aparicio was starting to show some signs of frustration. There's some, couple arguments. Mejia cut to him and he's stoic. He almost realized, okay, this team needs someone to calm them down. And I think that's a credit to his manager that he's shown early on that he can push buttons, he can go, he can be aggressive, he can be yelling and do what he needs on that front. But then this game, he was calm, he was cool. He went in at halftime, made one simple adjustment like he made, and boom, that was it. And I think that's very interesting that, good managers, they know kind of when to rock the boat, but also when to put a hand on the shoulder. And he seemed to do a great job of finding that balance between both.
Yeah, that's a great point on, the hand on the shoulder. The first half could have gone a completely different direction for Ottawa. Weren't the best team in the first half hour. And then around the 30-minute mark, Amir Didic goes down to injury. We still haven't heard an update on him, but it doesn't sound like he'll be back in the immediate future, at least. I know there was some concern among his teammates post-match. So, obviously hoping the best for Amir, but moments after that, it's the player that comes onto the pitch to replace Didic. It's Tier Walker, who makes a mistake at the back, and all of a sudden Ottawa's down 1-0 to Ronan Kratz's goal. And at that moment, things could have really gone off the rails. A mistake by a young player, a veteran comes off the pitch early. You've got a visiting team kind of down your throat whenever you have the ball. It could have gone either way at that point. Pacific, though, they miss, I think, a couple of chances after that, and Ottawa find a way back into it. Alex, I know you've watched a lot of Pacific this year as well. Why haven't they been able to play like that first half all year? What did you like about the press that they showed in this game, and I don't know what happened to them?
Yeah, what was great though is just how aggressive they looked. Like there was no sitting back. There was just this, they were just on top. They were pressing, like you mentioned. They scored off the press. Then when they won the ball back too, they kept the pressure up. They never slowed down. They kept the ball. They were playing it forward. Really, the only thing that you can look back from that half, like genuinely the only mistake, quote unquote, is that they didn't get a second. That, Josh Hurd has a breakaway. He goes far post. Nate Ingham makes a great read, kind of cheats to that side. Josh Hurd's probably looking back. Ooh, could I maybe have gone near post? There's, I think, another chance. And that was the game. Because Ottawa 1-0, they were in the game. 2-0, I would have been very curious to see what they would have done. Of course, in week 1, they came back from 2-0, but only got a draw. I think if Pacific went up 2, knowing how good they can be defensively, that probably would have been it. But they just, that was the one mistake. And something that was pointed out on the broadcast and something to watch is, this Pacific team has tired out sometimes in the second half, especially on the road. Maybe they're not traveling their whole allotment of substitutes. You got a couple of young guys on the bench too that you bring in. It is something to watch, that Pacific, that they have a start like this, but they aren't able to maintain it. Because that's honestly, like, their performances haven't been bad, other than maybe the Derby one over the last weekend. But they're not finding a way to turn those into results.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it is hard to play like they did in the first half over 90 minutes. And as you said, if they'd managed to score that second goal, maybe this is a very different game. But I think you do need to find a way to get a foothold back in the game when Atletico Ottawa punch back in the early second half. Biggest positive for me for Pacific here, though, is that's the best we've seen of Marco Bustos so far this season. I mean, the dude created 6 chances, which is pretty crazy. Looked like he was playing a little bit freer, really, really engineering that attack as soon as they got on the ball. And they did get on the ball often and high up the pitch. So good signs there. But again, a bit of a work in progress, I think, for Pacific. Speaking of works in progress, we'll go to Winnipeg next. Vancouver FC finally on the board. And look at them. They're in 4th place now with 5 points because they've got their first win of the year over Valour Football Club. Mitchell, you are on this game for us, and you want to talk about the new faces in Vancouver, because your question of this game is, are these new additions changing the course of Vancouver FC's season?
Well, for me, they sure are. I mean, Vancouver FC started the season and they had so many young and inexperienced players, but now they're slowly adding to that squad, and they're adding in key positions. We've already seen the kind of impact that a player like Nicholas Mosquita has made on this team with the way he plays, the confidence he brings, and the leadership he brings to this group. Now when you're a young guy like Emmerich Fotzing and you're playing in that midfield, you have reference points around you. You're looking and you're seeing a Vasco Fry, and you're seeing, Campbell and Diaz in front of you. You're seeing a Mosquito next to you, instead of looking across and seeing guys who are in the same situation as you and finding their footing in professional football. So I think that's been so important, is surrounding these talented young players with more experience and in important positions as well. We see Aiden O'Connor make his debut in this match on loan from the New York Red Bulls, and he's absolutely brilliant at the back. Good on the ball, just dominant in the air, good defensive instincts as well, makes some real blocks, and a difference maker in a key position for them. Juan Batista's looked good when he's made his appearances off the bench. Pathan Ndiaye scores his first goal in his first appearance. So all of a sudden, the vibes are really high right now in Vancouver, and a big part of that is some of these players they've been able to bring in to kind of add different elements to their squad.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of kind of new faces coming into Vancouver. Maybe players that we didn't talk about a lot before the season, or didn't at all because they weren't signed yet, like Aiden O'Connor. No relation, by the way. They come into this team and they are making a big difference, and I think that's it's good to see in Vancouver. Also good to see, obviously, is Alex Diaz getting on the board. Great finish. Wow, what a hit, just to put it over the top of Viscosi there. When he could have maybe chipped it a little bit more easily, he just side puts it pretty cleverly over the top. Valour, though, this game is a disaster for them. This is their second home game of the year, against a Vancouver team that they will have thought that they should beat going into this game. They're still looking for their first win. Mitch, why is their new approach not turning into results this year, and just what was wrong for them on this game?
Well, what I see is a team that this season, they want to play with more possession and more on the front foot. But it seems like anytime, they get punched, that plan goes out the window a little bit. Like, they start this game and they're on the ball, holding it fairly well, and Vancouver score, and all of a sudden, that patient approach goes away. They're looking to play long. They're not necessarily as composed on the ball. And if you want to play that way, you're going to have to kind of suffer sometimes when the opposing team does have their moments, and you're going to have to understand that we have to maintain it and keep playing this way. And the other thing is, if you want to be that patient, it has to come with product, and there's no final product for this team right now. I mean, their first shot of the game comes in, first shot on target of the game comes in the 66th minute. I mean, it does go in the top corner, but at the same time, that's not a high percentage shot. And if that's your first shot of the game at home in the 66th minute, something's not going right for your attack. So, they do show a good fight, but they show a good fight when they're down 2 goals and eventually down 2 men. Like, that's too late at that point, even against a Vancouver team that's, showing maybe a bit of vulnerability late in games. If you're playing, maybe a more steeled side at that point, you have no chance of getting back into the game. So, it's early, but if you're a team like Forge and Cavalry, who we've seen dig themselves out of holes in years past, and they have those reference points, like, you're not as worried. If it's a team like Valour, where it's supposed to be different this year, it starts to get really concerning.
Yeah, I can think of some inspiration Valour can take if they're looking to find ways to show fight when down 2 goals. They don't have to look too far within their own city. Congrats to the Jets, by the way. But it doesn't get easier for Valour coming forward, because they're already without Zach Fernandez and Sean Hundal for this game. Chris Twardek sent off here. He'll get a suspension. Javonte Lane will get a suspension. I don't believe those suspensions, however, carry over to this week's Canadian Championship game against TSS Rovers. Huge game for Valour. We saw how a big CanChamp win kind of rejuvenated Cavalry last week. We're going to get to them in a sec. Valour need this to be the exact same for them. They need to come out. They need to beat TSS Rovers comfortably, especially considering that's a team that beat them, upset them in this competition a couple of years ago. Valour have to win that game for me. Moving on from this game, though, Alex Gange-Ruzik, you were on the game of the week, the TSN game, Halifax versus Forge. It was supposed to be so much fun, 2 very entertaining and attacking teams. It was Dan Nimick's big return to the Wanderers grounds, and instead we got a 0-0. I mean, the shots were 12-9, so it's not like they weren't trying to score. But let's start with Halifax, Alex, because you want to talk about their defending. Obviously, you have to defend pretty well to keep Forge off the board. What's impressed you about their defensive structure so far this year, and are they showing signs of being elite in that category?
Yeah, it's early, so I won't. That's why I don't want to throw out the word elite yet. Usually, you wait kind of 10, 14 games, but the signs are there, and I think the fact that they're now after 5 games, they're the second best defensive record. They've kept back-to-back clean sheets, which I think was pointed out as something they never did last year. They had the worst defensive record in the league last year. To see a turnaround this stark, this early, that's a credit to Patrice Kaiser, because that's obviously something he's prioritized. And, just shout out to the way Tamamir Jagir has gone in. And because I point him out as an individual. Some of the guys, anytime you talk about him, you can tell the influence he's had. Because the thing with Tamamir Jagir, like, he loves defending. He will block a shot and it means more than a goal. And this is the guy who scored a lot of goals. And like, he'll score a goal and it's like, cool. He'll make a block and it's like bedlam. In this game, again, Brian Wright has the game on his foot around 60th minute. Like, Ryan Yesley's out of the picture. Tamamir Jagir comes flying in off screen, goal line clearance, stadium goes nuts. You kind of knew, okay, Halifax probably getting at least something out of this game. And that's just contagious, because you got guys around him like Kareem Sow, who we just haven't seen a lot of because of injuries and, being relatively young. It's rubbing off of him. It's Adam Perlman, another young guy. These are 2 young guys in the back, and Mayor Jagir is just kind of taking them on each shoulder and like, all right, let's go do this together. You're going to learn with me. You're going to have some fun. And what I love about Halifax, they're defending in many ways. They're pressing when they need to. They're pushing high up the field. They're also comfortable sitting back and weathering a storm for 20 minutes. Last year, that was disaster, right? They'd have a high start. They'd score a goal. They'd sit back. Things wouldn't go great for them. So I love that they're defending well. I love that they're defending as a team. And I love that they're defending in multiple ways. For me, those tick all the boxes. And you look at Forge's numbers, Forge dominated the ball. Usually that's a sign of goals. Yet Halifax doubled their box entries, doubled their entries into the final third. And there was only one shot worth more than like 0.1 XG. Against Forge, you take that every day of the week and then some. Yeah. And for a Wanderers team that wasn't as good defensively last year, I think those are all very, very positive signs.
Absolutely. I mean, Tamamir Jagir, my goodness, 8 clearances in this game and really throws himself in front of that ball. And Halifax have conceded just 4 goals in 5 games, which is pretty crazy if you ask me. Patrice Kaiser, though, would tell you that this is all by design. This was, as you said, a priority in the offseason. You asked him about this after the game, Alex. Here's what Patrice had to say about his new look defense.
Listen, I think one has been our recruiting, so bringing Thomas in, who loves defending, and Thomas is an experienced player and knows the players in this league. That's really important. But at the same time, Adam Perlman's a young man who just came in and I thought has done great. Kareem played 18 minutes last year. So I think it's a little bit of individual, but when you look at what happened today, Alex, I think it's the defending of 11 players. And sorry, I forgot to mention Ryan Yesley. But I think it's the team defending. So we really worked on making us comfortable without the ball. Often when we didn't have the ball, we would jump out, leave spaces. They would get it. They would go to another advanced space, and it would be a goal. So by us being comfortable without the ball, with us being deadly in transition, by us being able to do really good job defending boxes, it's been great. And look, we brought in Giovanni Petraglia, and Gio's been great working with the defenders. He's done a really, really good job, and knock on wood, I hope to see more and more of a growth of the team throughout the season.
I'm sure we will from Halifax, but Forge, let's go to them now, because Alex, not the sparkling return to the Wanderers grounds for Dan Nimick he would have hoped, maybe not the disastrous one that the Wanderers fans would have hoped though. Forge, 3 straight draws, not quite putting the ball in the net as much as they want. That's 3 halves in a row now. They haven't scored because they didn't score in the second half at York. What do you think's not quite clicking for them right now?
Yeah, well, shout out to Mitch for this, because of course we've got a new Opta tool in the office we've been playing around with, and it means more sicko stats. And the one that stood out after the game when I dove in is, like, heading into this weekend, Forge were only 3 touches in the box off the bottom team, which was Valour, who you have to remember had a game in hand on Forge.
Yeah.
Essentially, on a per game basis, it was Vancouver at the bottom and it was Forge right behind them. And the fact in this game that Forge only finished with 18 touches in the box, right in line of their average of the year of 18.75. They're just not getting the box enough. And I think something just feels off about their attack. That was what was clear in this game, because Bobby Smirniotis put it well. It wasn't like they were pretty good on the ball. They controlled a lot of areas of the game. But usually when Forge do that, they punish the opponent. They put them under pressure. They get into the box. They create chances, and boom, the dam breaks. And the dam just never really came close to breaking. The only time was Brian Wright with that chance in the second half where he sneaks in behind. But usually Forge would create 4, 5, 6 chances like that. What's worrying is just the formula seems off. Brian Wright's been obviously a big focus since he's new. I don't even think that's fair at this point, because you look, Tristan Borges, he's just kind of looked uncomfortable on the left. I know he had some success there last year. He's not doing as good of a job as getting wide and crossing. I think they were 5 for 22 on crosses in this game, which was weak when you have a guy of Wright's stature in the box. David Chouanier, same thing, wasn't able to be effective with this crossing. They didn't get, Ben Payton is involved in overlapping. I know that's something that Marko Yevremovic was doing a great job of. Ditto on the right side with Rezart Rama. From there, their midfielders aren't getting as involved. And the reality is, when you look at the stats, Forge have as many goals right now from defenders as they do from attackers. And none of them, no goals from their midfielders. That's not Forge. So I think that's going to be something for Smirniotis to focus on, just how not aggressive they've looked offensively.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there are some concerns there. I mean, they do go to a little bit more of a traditional Forge front three with Chouanier and Borges on the wings, after it's usually been Ampoma or whoever else on the wings. Babuli, obviously, to start this year. They go back to maybe guys that have been there for the last couple of years, and again, just struggling to get into the box. Again, Brian Wright far and away has the most touches in the box for them, but that's just 6. And again, we can't really criticize him for not scoring if the ball's just not getting to him all that much anymore. And I think you're very right to point that out, Alex. Bobby Smirniotis obviously frustrated at the moment. Let's see if he had anything to say to identify what's maybe going wrong with them right now.
Yeah, to be honest, on the ball, I thought for most of the game we're quite good. We worked, their defensive shape around, kind of like we had planned. So that was all good. And here's the thing: in these games, you need to unlock it. Sometimes, or in certain moments in the first half, we had that early with Brian's chance in the second half as well, and that changes the game. Otherwise, you got to be patient. It's a valuable point for us on the road. That's for sure. But we need to create a little bit more for all of the ball that we had, and we got into the right areas of the pitch, and just moving the opponent around. We need to create a little bit more in the final third in the penalty area of the opponent.
Well, we shall see if they can create any more against each other, because these two teams are playing each other again on Wednesday in Hamilton in the Canadian Championship. Maybe that one will be a little bit more fun. Let's hope, at least. But it was our first game of the weekend. It's our final game that we're going to talk about on this show. Cavalry FC beating York United 2-1 at York Lions Stadium. Mitch, again, you are on this game for us. We've been looking for it all year, but was that finally the real Cavalry FC?
I think so. I mean, April showers bring May flowers for Cavalry FC. We've been talking about multiple weeks about, how this team has never won a CPL game in April. Well, they've only ever lost one CPL game in May. They're 12-6-1 in the month of May. And this just seems to be the time when, they really blossom as a team. First win of 2025 for them, of course, in CPL action. It comes off just a really smart road performance. They do such a good job in this game. It's not necessarily the prettiest Cavalry FC performance, but they do a really good job of, clogging up that midfield, having their 2 midfielders sit on York's central 2, and just stopping York's ability to play forward. And then, coming off a 6-0 win in the Canadian Championship against Edmonton Scottish in midweek, which does a lot for their confidence. They really show their depth in this game without Brad Camden. You bring in Levi Lang for his first CPL start as a center back. I thought he was really, really solid in one-on-ones, and his passing ability is strong as well. Volling does a solid job for coming in for Fraser Aird at right back there, sets up a goal, and then you have an early injury to Michael Baldissimo, who again will add to the Emmer Didic list of hoping he's doing well, because that certainly looked concerning given his injury past. But you bring in Max Pipegrass for his first CPL minutes since 2021, and he was excellent as well. I mean, really threw himself into that midfield battle, and was solid. Shamit Shom next to him was fantastic in this game. Like, he was really the architect of Cavalry's win. But it's just the depth for me of this team. And then you bring Kenija Elva and Fraser Aird off the bench, and they go out and score the winner, like in a week where you're playing 3 games in 12 days. The first one doesn't necessarily go well, but they're able to manage the squad well enough to put in really good performances and results in the other 2, and show their depth, show their determination. This is the Cavalry Football Club that we expected this season. And now that it's May, it seems like they've finally shown up.
Yeah, it looks like it. Also, shout out Toby Warshevsky again, being the guy before halftime. He is just a superstar in this league, and big for Cavalry to obviously you concede right before halftime. Maybe that's the best time for them to concede at the moment, because they're able to regroup after we saw a week before they kind of fell apart after a couple minutes of frustration. But this time they're able to regroup. They pull it back. Fraser Aird comes on the pitch. He scores that goal, and they needed this response really badly. So congratulations to Cavalry. York, though, it's kind of tough to gauge them right now, Mitch. They've had some very good moments. They've played very well in some games, but maybe not over 90 minutes. Coming into this game, they'd had a lead in 3 consecutive games and won none of them. They don't get a lead in this game, but they still really have a foothold. They're right there in this game, and then it's that moment in the second half that it comes apart. Just what do you need to see from York, Mitch, and how do they put together 90 minutes?
Yeah, the first time all year where they hadn't led in a match at some point, and that leads to another frustrating night for York, because I thought again they respond super well to going down. Second straight game where they concede a goal and then score immediately thereafter, and you think they're going into the second half with all the momentum, having scored late. But again, right now they just don't seem to be able to put together that full 90 minutes and find that determination. I think we need to see more from the players coming off the bench in terms of their ability to change the game and affect certain situations. We haven't seen that yet from York United. And it's the fine margins over 90 minutes. They switch off on a Cavalry FC throw in, and all of a sudden they're down 2-1. And I haven't yet seen that, especially in second half, that fight and determination that you need to get a game over the line for them. You see Cavalry, and obviously Adonijah Reed puts one off the post, so they get a little bit of luck, but they're also throwing their body in front of shots late in the game. Like, they're doing that dirty work that you need to get games over the line in this league. We haven't seen that from York yet this season. So that's the next step. And I think this is a team that has that ability, but we need to see the grit from them and those final little margins taken care of that will lead to victories instead of, a good 45 here and there.
Yeah, absolutely. I think if there's a silver lining for me, it's that they do finally look like they can bring some players off the bench. Massimo Ferrin, usually a starter, obviously, for this team, but he's a difference maker you bring off the bench in this game. Adonijah Reed, as you mentioned, the depth is starting to come into place with this team, which might help them going forward in that regard. That's all 4 games for this week. So let's bring up the standings and look at where we are after match week 5. We have Atletico Ottawa clear in first place on 13 points, followed by Halifax occupying second, all on their own with 11. Forge in third with 9. Vancouver FC with 5. Sorry, guys, I think we stole a point from them in last week's show. They actually had 2. But they are now ahead of Cavalry FC with 4, who are just above the playoff line, thanks to tiebreakers ahead of York and Pacific, who both also have 4. And then poor Valour Football Club all the way down there with 1 point so far. But they do have a game in hand, so if they can win that, then they're right back in it. Coming up this week, we do have 3 awesome games in the CPL. Very quickly, though, the Canadian Championship does continue. York United versus Laval and Pacific versus Vancouver on Tuesday night. Forge versus Halifax and Valour versus TSS Rovers on Wednesday. up into next weekend's CPL action. Atletico Ottawa, Valour FC on Saturday, followed later that afternoon, Halifax against Cavalry FC on TSN Saturday afternoon, 6:30 Atlantic time, 5:30 Eastern, 3:30 Mountain. And then Saturday's slate is wrapped up with Pacific hosting York United. That one's always fun. And also, not on the graphic there, but coming up soon, we've got a school day game next week, next Tuesday in Hamilton.
Let's go. I can get out of class again.
Atletico Ottawa. Yeah, Mitchell, we will write you a note. You are allowed to attend that game. Make sure you pack your lunch, though. Anyway, we know that AGR is pulling double duty this morning, so we're going to let you run off and go join OneSoccer today. Anybody who has stuck with us to this point, you can go watch that as well, I'm sure, on YouTube by now. Anyway, we thank you all very, very much for watching. We hope you enjoy some of this week's action, and we'll see you next week.
It's not away yet. Oh, my goodness me, what a goal.